I'm Greg Jarrett for FoxNews.com. Well, the terror attack against the French magazine Charlie Hebdo is putting renewed focus now on Al-Qaeda's branch in Yemen. The jihadist group says they directed the massacre in Paris, and if confirmed, that attack would be the first time Al-Qaeda's branch in Yemen has successfully carried out an operation in the West after at least 2 earlier attempts. So, how big of a threat are they to the United States? Joining us now to talk about it, former U.S. Ambassador to Yemen, Stephen Seche. Ambassador, welcome. How big a threat are they to the U.S.?
Greg, I think they are a substantial threat to the United States and to the West more generally. I think they've made very clear their intention to conduct attacks abroad. As you noted yourself, they tried twice without success to launch attacks against the United States, and once by good fortune it failed, and once by good intelligence work it failed. So I don't doubt for a moment they will continue to try. They may be a bit overburdened at the moment given events happening internally in Yemen, but certainly the intent remains, if not the means.
To what do you attribute the growth in strength and lethality of Al-Qaeda in Yemen?
Al-Qaeda in Yemen has been growing since they had a substantial breakout of prisoners from a Yemeni jail some years ago, and that was the core group. And since then, they've attracted others to their franchise as they have grown and become better known for the activities they've conducted and their intent, again, to conduct more attacks. And some of these have been fairly dramatic, as I say. The 2 attacks, the Christmas Day bomber in 2009 and the toner cartridges in October 2010, the attack on the Saudi Interior Minister, these were all orchestrated by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and so therefore they have become known within the jihadist circles as an organization that has the effectiveness to conduct these kind of attacks, and perhaps even successfully.
Several months ago, the State Department issued a terror report based on pretty extensive study. Their conclusion, these Al-Qaeda affiliates, including that in Yemen, are gaining in strength, they're growing stronger, more lethal, and yet on the heels of that report, President Obama bragged that Somalia and Yemen are models of success. Is he naive? Is he uninformed, or worse?
Well, I think the president, narrowly defined, is probably not wrong on that. You know, with the exception of what we see now, no one even knows if AQAP was behind this attack. They may have been an inspirational kind of a motivation, but not a practical, maybe they didn't engineer this in those regards. So I think the president was speaking narrowly about the fact that we have been able to keep Al-Qaeda in Yemen at bay for some time now. We have, through the drone strikes, through our cooperation with the Yemeni government, Al-Qaeda has been somewhat on its heels. And again, there's other circumstances in Yemen with a Shia rebel group now moving around through Yemen, also occupying their attention. So, again, I think very narrowly defined, the president had a point. I wouldn't make too much of it because clearly there's not much success we could point to at the moment in Yemen in this regard.
Well, what more can the United States do to take the battle to the terrorists and defeat them in places like Yemen?
This is an extraordinarily difficult question to answer, Greg, and that's the problem. We cannot introduce ground forces in Yemen. It would be absolutely counterproductive. We would get nowhere with it. Trainers, kind of enablers would be very helpful, and we have those on the ground. But the other reality is the situation on the ground is so non-permissive, so unstable, and so unsafe that it's really difficult to introduce too many American forces because they become themselves then a target, and we don't want to have that level of security risk for our own personnel. So we are in this kind of conundrum. How do we get help in there when it's so badly needed? But the fact that it's so badly needed reflects a very unstable situation on the ground.
Looking back now on the president's broader remarks during the campaign, you know, Osama bin Laden's dead, Al-Qaeda's on the run. He all but pronounced the war on terror over. In retrospect, were those errors completely mistaken? Were those remarks completely mistaken?
I think at the time they probably had real relevance. I think what we've seen, though, is that left, kind of unattended, Al-Qaeda will basically morph and evolve and grow stronger and grow resurgent. So it's not something we can say at one moment, yes, we have this under control, and expect that to be the case endlessly down through time. We have to be able to be there, sustain our engagement, sustain our presence, our cooperation, our training with the host government so that we can, in fact, have the assurance that we're doing what we need 24/7, because these groups are very resilient, and they will come back, and that's what we're seeing now.
Stephen Seche, former U.S. ambassador to Yemen, thank you so much for being with us. For more on this developing story, stay with FoxNews.com. I'm Greg Jarrett. Thanks for watching.